Okay, so this Maamar is based on Maamar that Rashab going to say soon. In other words, that's the Shak of Ataya is based around. A lot of Maamar and Mlukot, you based around Maamar of previous Rebbe, and the Rebbe takes it a step further. I'll say. Fine. The years of Sarah were 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. The years of the life of Sarah. Taik and Maamar Shabbat Chasid Balim Aladis Chof Marchez Maamar Itver Maskul Zeh. Harei Kvar Maamar Vayehiyu Chayei. Lama Nichbal Loit Pam Shnei Chayei. So this is the famous Maamar, the famous Shaila. So this asks why is the pasuk being repetitive? The pasuk says the life of Sarah was 127 years. The life of years of Sarah, you said it 2 times. Why couldn't you just say Vayehiyu Chayei Sarah? So this question is a question that Chassidus asks. It's a question really that's asked in Zohar. It's an old question. Maamar continues. In the Zohar, in this pasuk, Bevar Tchilos HaPasuk V'yishin Eretz Bakeli Melech L'Sod HaNevad L'Achri Zohimer the Inyan Vayehiyu Chayei Sarah Hu Sarah Zoch Shel Chayei Nilon. Okay, so the Zohar, in order to explain this, first brings the pasuk V'yishin Eretz Bakeli Melech L'Sod HaNevad, which means we'll explain all of this by soon, but simple meaning of the pasuk is that the Maila of the earth is in everything, and even the king is meshubah to the field. Even the person that's in the highest level, Saib Gashmis, Saib Nefesh, will still have to come on to the growth of the earth, right? He'll need food that comes from the ground. But Alpi Chassidus, Alpi Kabbalah, it has a whole different meaning, like we'll go on and explain soon. So the Zohar first explains this pasuk, and then he says, based on what we explained in this pasuk, applying it to the pasuk Vayehiyu Chayei Sarah, that when we say Vayehiyu Chayei Sarah, we don't just mean that Sarah lived, we mean the darga of Sarah Lamayla, which is Malchus, and Vayehiyu Chayei Sarah doesn't just mean that she lived, it means that she was zoicha to a higher level of life than the level of Malchus and Tzadatzim, meaning that it received a higher level from higher spheres, like we'll elaborate later in the Maamar. So the Maamar goes on and explains, and teaches the Zohar. The Zohar says that based on Yisn Eretz Bakeli, Vayehiyu Chayei Sarah means that Sarah was Zeicha L'Chayei Niloin. But the Zohar doesn't elaborate so much. What's the pshat of Yisn Eretz Bakeli Melech L'Sod HaNevad? So the Maamar goes on and explains the Shaychas Yisn Eretz Bakeli by first explaining what's the meaning of Yisn Eretz Bakeli. Eretz v'Soda him Chinas Malchus. Eretz and Soda is all the inyan of Malchus. We'll explain later the difference in Eretz and Soda, but B'chlolos, the inyan of Makabel, the inyan of something that doesn't have anything of its own, it just receives from the previous spheres and passes it on, that's the inyan of Malchus. That's the inyan of the earth. Earth is the power of taking something and making it come out in a way that it will be Bein Arich. Better and bigger, takes Makabel a koyach and it passes it on. That's the Nakuda of Malchus. So, Inyan Yisn Eretz Bakeli Melech L'Sod HaNevad Hu Hamshachas Ha'irish L'Mayla Mimalchus B'chenas Koyel B'chenas Melech B'Malchus. So Yisn Eretz means not just Malchus the way it is stam. Malchus Yisn Eretz Bakeli is that we add in Eretz Koyel. We bring into Eretz a higher darga, the Bechina of Koyel. The oir that's higher than Malchus. We're translating not that the king is meshubah to the field, but we're teaching that in the Sada Dafka is Nimshach a higher darga of Melech. And Melech and Koyel, even though we say Bechlal, that Malchus receives the Eidos that are higher than itself, right? It's not its own Eidos, but still, this is a greater inyan. that you're mamshich in Malchus, the oiros that are higher than Malchus. I'll explain later why this is a higher eifin than regular. So yeah, Shaychas is Malchus of the Nevet. Vihyuch HaYisara, this is the connection to Vihyuch HaYisara. Yisara hi b'chinas Malchus. Dugmas eretz v'sada. Right? Sada is also the union of Malchus. Sada is achsal chayni loin, hu shenimshechu ba ha'eretz shalamayla b'Malchus. It's the same idea as Yisra Bakayli, that it doesn't just receive the regular eretz. In Sada is nimshach chayni loin, the eretz that are higher than Malchus. Var barucha dal to onyon shebapasuk visna eretz goymer. Shtei beginnes b'Malchus eretz v'sada. Shtei beginnes b'ha'eretz shalamayla b'Malchus. And mishachim b'Malchus b'chinas kil b'chinas Malchus. Maamar, the Rebbe Rashab explains Barucha, what are the two dargis of Malchus, Eretz, and Soda, and what are the two dargis of Koil and Melech that are being nimshach into Malchus. That's the arichos of the Maamar in the Rebbe Rashab. And then he explains the Esim Shana, B'Sheva Shana, V'al Derech B'chinas Koil, U'Meya Shana, V'al Derech B'chinas Melech. And he applies these nekudas that we have in the pasuk Yisna Eretz B'Koili to the pasuk of Vihyuch HaYisara. The Meya Shana is the inyan of Melech, same darga as Melech. Esem Shana is the darga of Chachma Bina. Sheva is the inyan of Midas. That's the same inyan as Koil. So it's perfectly basin to the pasuk Yisna Eretz B'Koili. This is what was nimshach into the life of Sarah that made it in a greater darga. Then the Rebbe Rashab finishes off in the Maamar Vayehiyu Chayei. Now we'll answer the question that we asked in the beginning. Why are we repeating ourselves? Vihyuch HaYisara and Shnei HaYisara. Vihyuch HaYisara is being mamshich Chayei just in Sarah, just in Malchus. Shnei HaYisara who, and then we add Shnei HaYisara. What are we adding with Shnei HaYisara? Adding something additional. Not only does it is Meir in Malchus, but the Oilimus that Malchus gives it to will receive something less. But even in Biyah, even in Oilimus, it also receives that higher Darga of Chayes that was Nimshach in Malchus. This is the beer of the Maamar of the Rebbe Rashab. So the Rebbe always does these Maamrim. So usually when we take these Maamrim, we say that the questions and the answers are only a passport, right? The Maamar wants to explain a certain inyan. The questions are just in order to get into the inyan. That's always the way Chassidim looked at a Maamar. Even the Rabbeim spoke like that. So we want to explain what's the pshat of Chayei Loin being mamshach higher darga of Chayes and Malchus, right? What's Malchus Mitzad Atzmain? What's the higher level? So in order to get into that, we have a shaila on the pasuk Vihyuch HaYisara, and we explain what's the amshachas, we bring down the Zohar. The Zohar says the pasuk Yisna Eretz B'Koili. Yisna Eretz B'Koili has all the different dargas. So now we can elaborate on it. Then we'll add more. But everything in Torah by the Rebbe is nicht stam. If you have a shaila and a Maamar, then the Maamar has a shaila. We have an answer. The answer is the way that we're going to answer the question. It's not, if we have a whole beer and a Maamar, this is what we need in order to get to the answer. Without this, we're not going to get to the answer. So, if you want to elaborate for me what's pshat, Vihyuch HaYisara, want to have a Maamar and Vihyuch HaYisara, okay. So you're going to bring me Yisna Eretz B'Koili, you're going to elaborate all the different dargas. Even though really in this pasuk itself, you already have all the dargas, Meir Shan, Vesem Shan, Sheva Shanim. But fine, you can tell me it's clear in that pasuk. The Zohar brings it, elaborate on it, very nice. But here, where we really want to know why we need Shnei HaYisara also. What's the Yisaf of Shnei HaYisara? Meaning, once we know Vihyuch HaYisara means Shachas Chayei Loin b'Malchus, so then we know, so what's the Yisaf of Shnei HaYisara? Mamshach that also in Biyah. So all we need to know is that the first half of the pasuk means that we're Mamshach Chayei Loin b'Malchus. In order for us to know the answer why we say Shnei HaYisara, why we're Moisef Shnei HaYisara also. So l'chayra, we don't need to get into the whole arichas abir on the Yisna Eretz B'Koili to elaborate on the first half of the pasuk. All we need to know is what the first half of the pasuk is referring to in order to know the second half. So, Zeh Shabir Zeh Ba B'Hamayim La'achri Bir HaPasuk V'Yisna Eretz Koyim V'Shai Chusay L'Vihyuch HaYisara Mashma Shai Dizeh Mitoysef Bir B'Yin D'Shnei HaYisara Amshach HaBiyah. So what the Rebbe is being medayik is that we need to know the whole beer of Yisrael Eretz Bakoli. Dafka, the connection to that pasuk and all the different dargis, in order for us to understand why Shnei Chai Yisara, how the Chayini Loin are Nipshach and Biyah. For us to understand that concept, we need to know Yisrael Eretz Bakoli. It's Negeya for the second half of the pasuk as well. We have to understand why. So, the Rebbe is first going to get into Barichas, all the concepts in that Maamar, and Al-Pisa, the Rebbe is going to get to the beer in the end of the Maamar. What's the difference between Eretz and Sodeh? Right, Yisrael Eretz Bakeli and Melch Sodeh Nevad. Eretz Uklal Soil. The whole world is Eretz, earth. Sodeh Amufra Shabbat. It's organic, just like Begashmis, a field. It's not just regular earth. A field is ground that was worked on. That you're able to grow things in. It's able to be beautiful. So, Al Derech Zen Ruchnius, Sodeh refers to the place in the world that's in a higher level, Baruchnius, that's more of a keli for Elikus. And this is Gan Eden. Gan Eden is a physical place in the world, right, that Adam Rishon was in, that like it explains in Svar and Pasha Baruchnius, it was a more of a keli for Inyanim Ruchnim. Where does this difference come from? It comes from the Shaidish. There's two levels of Malchus. There's Chetzenis HaMalchus and Primis HaMalchus. The Kitzer, Chetzenis HaMalchus is what a person is actually gives over to someone else. That's only the Chetzenis of what Malchus really has. Because Malchus is taking all of the Inyanim that he understood previously, and he's giving it over, so there's the ability of a person to really get what he was saying previously. And then there's what he gives over to the other person. So the higher level of that koyach of giving over is the bittul, the ability to be able to really give yourself over to what you know. So that's an inyan of bittul. That inyan of bittul is really the herring, the higher dargis. You're not going away from what you have, and you're not going to a more chetzenistic, simple way of taking what you know. Fakert. You're really giving yourself over to what you have in order to be able to give it over. That's Primis HaMalchus. Chetzenis HaMalchus is the ability to give it over. So that's going to be a more Chetzenis Hashpa. So because you have these two dargis in Malchus, so by default what's going to come out Lamata is also going to be, there's going to be one level of a Tachtein that's going to know where it's coming from. And it's going to the Fakir, it's going to be a Keli for the higher levels. And then there's going to be another level which is the result of the Hashpa B'Poyel. It's going to be a more external type of world, which is just going to be attacked in the way it is without feeling anything high. So that's the rest of the world and Gan Eden. So the Maamar says this is similar to the difference in a field and Eretz Bagashmi is that the difference is if you're able to plant it, so the same thing. You have Gan Eden, which is a place that even without too much avodah, the place itself is right to reveal the giluyim that come through the avodah of mitzvahs. Right now we do the avodah of mitzvahs here and we don't see the result. It's going to come, we're going to see the result. This is the hell of the Hester. But when it comes to Gan Eden, Adam and Rishon came to this place. This place was a place that you do the avodah of mitzvahs. It's a place where you could be. It's a keli to be able to reveal the giluyim of Ein Seif that comes through mitzvahs. This is compared to planting. Mitzvahs is compared to planting. Just like a mitzvah, you do a gashmistic act. And it comes out a giluy that's bein arech to this simple gashmistic thing that you did. It comes a giluy of Ein Seif. So it's similar to the system of planting that you plant a little kernel in the ground. And dafke, when you use this koyach of tachton, this koyach of the earth, comes out something that's bein arich. And this is similar to what we explained in other places in Chassidus. Hashem took Adam and put him in Gan Eden in order to work on the land. That's what it says in the pasuk. What does it mean to work on the land? To protect the land. In other words, we're referring to the avodah of Torah mitzvahs. What does this have to do with the Gan Eden? Yeah, Meaning, okay, they should put him in Gan Eden to do the Avodah Torah mitzvahs. But we will pray, the pasuk uses Lashonos that he put him specifically in this place to work on this land. Yeah, what does it have to do with this land? The fact that he's doing the Avodah Torah mitzvahs. So this explains what does it have to do specifically with Gan Eden? Gan Eden is a place that is able to reveal the Hapshachas of Torah mitzvahs. And this, that, Lapoyo. The Gili of mitzvahs is also Nimshach B'chlal in the rest of the world, even after Adam was kicked out of Gan Eden. The rest of the world is not a makom mukhshar for it. Push the cost of it. Hashem Elokim Gan Eden lav this Adam Gomer. Then you lav this Adam who last is hamakom the olam shem mukhshar la gilui. Here there's an additional avodah. Hashem sent Adam from Gan Eden lav this Adam. Lav this Adam. We tied. You had to take the earth and transform the earth to become a keli. That's what you have to do to the rest of the world. We'll see later in the Maamar that the Eibusha wanted to even take a place that's not a keli and make it also be a dira b'tachten. But fine. Getting back to the pasuk Yisneretz B'Keli Melchus Adeneved. Once we know what Eretz and Sod is, the difference in Eretz and Sod is. So now understand the pasuk Yisneretz B'Keli Melchus Adeneved. Yisn the Eretz. Klal Soil. Savusayum b'Chisein Yisam Malchus Hi B'Koil. He's fierce. I say there's a mile in Eretz that in Eretz Dafka is Nimshach the Darga of Koil. What's the Darga of Koil? The Darga of Koil is Yisoid. Why is the Darga of Yisoid Koil? We'll see later. But the Pashtos, the reason why Yisoid is called Koil is because Yisoid is what carries in it all of the Giluyim from all the previous elements. So it has everything. It's all inclusive. But then is Melchus Adeneved. Melchus Adeneved is, like we said before, is the avodah which is connected to the Kiyam mitzvahs, because Sada is a place that's able to carry the Zamshach of mitzvahs. What's Melech? Melech is Ein Seif. Melech is what's higher than Seder Shtalshus. The king himself. So that's even higher than Yisneretz B'Keli. Man Melech. Who is the Melech? The Melech Ilo. This Charbel Sada Kadiu Nevad. Like we said before, the way the Zohar is translating Melchus Adeneved is that the Nevad is going on the field under the king. When the field is worked on, which in our Inyan, through doing mitzvahs in the Sada, so then that's Mamshich, the king. The Melech is Nimshach when the Sada is Nevad. They have it began it. Sada Nevad. He have it came on mitzvahs. Love the Ramachas say Shamos Mitzvahs say through the Aveda in Gan Eden, which is the Aveda mitzvahs, because Gan Eden is the place that is Mukhshar for the Aveda of mitzvahs. Then Nimshach Ein Seif Malachilah Shalamayla Megillah Dukhanaskel. That's Mamshich even. Ein Seif himself, that's even higher than Koil. Okay, so this is the in words the dargis of Yisneretz B'Keli Melchus Adeneved. And I will explain them. I'll explain these three levels. Malchus K'meshim said that's Shachas Agil D'B'Chenas Koil. You say Shachas Agil D'B'Chenas Melechila. They keep on mitzvahs. So in other words, we come out from here is like we said in Sef Aleph. This Yisn Eretz B'Koil. This that Koil is Nimshach in Eretz is an additional Inyan on the level of Eretz Mitzadatzman. Eretz already has Ashpa. Malchus is always the Makabel, and Malchus has within it a very limited basic Ashpa. But then to be Mamshich Koil Yisoid in Eretz is an additional thing. So we have to understand what's Malchus the way it is Mitzadatzman. What's the Mila Malchus that has Yisoid? What's the Mila that comes through mitzvahs, which is Eretz? Understand these three madrigas. When you say the Malchus, to understand what's you say what's Malchus. Different. You say the Malchus is Malchus is Shani V'Roim. Malchus is the source of Nevroim. Chenik is a Malchus Hashem Dibur. Malchus Peh. That's why, like we say in the Kohen, like we say in Pasuk Leo, Malchus is called mouth. Malchus is connected to mouth. The Malchus is Dibur. Just like Dibur is for the Zulas. What does it mean it's for the Zulas? First of all, Dibur has the ability that the other person hears it. Right? The other kaychos in a person are within him. Right? It doesn't come out to the other person. It's a part of his nefesh. It's his own experience. Dibur is something that the person does it and the other person hears it. So here you have to take something from the person that believes him, and that's why it's able to be heard by someone else. So that's first of all, that's how Malchus Dibur is the union of Zulas. Yeah, before getting into what the point of the koyach is, but the koyach itself, the poyel mamish, is something that reaches the other person. So in addition to that, Gam koyach hadibur shebehod amatzmoi in yonehu zeh shebekoyach ledaber Zulas. What's the inyan of Dibur? The inyan of Dibur, the ability of Dibur is not the ability of just a person says words. The ability of Dibur is the ability of Ashpa, the ability of taking something and giving it over to someone else. The inyan of revealing the things inside of you, outside of you. That's the koyach of Dibur. Right? The person doesn't need to have the inyan of speech just for himself. The point of the Dibur is the ability to be able to bring things out in words. What's the point of that? The ability of bringing things out in words is for the other person. So similarly, Malchus is like Dibur. The definition of Malchus is that it's the source, it's the beginning of Nivroy. Even when it's an Atzilus. It's not just the verb. Malchus is where the Chayes of the Nivroim come from. Why is the Chayes of the Nivroim come from Malchus? Because it starts from what the point of Malchus itself is. Because Malchus, its idea, its ability is the ability of a Zulas, the ability of recognizing the other person and giving over Hashpah for him. So that's why the Hashpah B'yah comes from Malchus, but it starts from the idea of Malchus beforehand. Even within Atzilus, in other words, Al-Derech in a person, from when the person has the ability within himself, before he actually uses it, the Etzem ability is an ability that already takes into account the Zulas. The part of himself that's the beginning of a Zulas. That's Malchus. Yisoidu siyum atzilus, siyum adaguf. Yisoid though, even though we say that Yisoid is the ability of Hashpah, Yisoid though is the end of the guf. Right, what it says in Paschal Yo, Yisoid is keneged the makam amilu. But the point is that it's siyum adaguf. It's part of the person's guf. It's not an inyan that leaves the person. It's the lowest part within the person. In other words, it's still a chelik of the person's nefesh, of the chaychus of the person that's for himself, but it's the end of it. It's what the part of the person, the lepoyo, will reach Malchus, will be given over to Malchus, but it's still a chelik of the person. What would that be in the mashal? That's similar to midas. Yeah, midas. This that a person has emotions. Would you define emotions as something that the person has just mitzad atzma, or is it something that is connected to other people? In other words, you have the nefesh ha'adam. Nefesh ha'adam has its own type of nefesh, its own type of personality. What's the gather of personality? Is the gather of personality something that you have a type of person, a type of mitzvah, and it's disconnected from anything outside of him, it's his own thing. But be'emes, there's different inyanim. Are inyanim that make up the person's way of thinking, the person's way of running his life. And then there is those things that, even though it's part of his own person, it's part of his own nefesh, but it's a yechelas to react to things outside of him. It's the way he feels about the person outside of him, the inyanim outside of him. So really, it's for the Zulas also. What do we mean for the Zulas? We don't mean for the Zulas that it's for the other person to know about. We don't mean that it's for the Zulas that its purpose is to reach the other person. Like Midas is his own feelings, his own reaction, his own experience. But it's the experience of the Zulas. Seichel has nothing to do with the Zulas. Seichel is all theoretical. Midas is the way a person reacts and feels about all the things around him. So therefore, even though we're saying it's a chiluk of the person, but it's far connected to the Zulas, and that's why it reaches Malchus, right? But on the other hand, on the flip side, it's not like Malchus. Malchus is a koyach that's completely for the Zulas, and that reaches the Zulas. It's the ability of Hashpah. This is not the ability of Hashpah. It's within the person himself, but it's the person's reaction to what's outside. But it's the Nakuda that, the Siyoma de Gufa, it's the person's decided, or it's the person's feelings, the person's reaction. So therefore, it is called Siyoma de Gufa, it's called the Chelak of the Mashpia. So, we use it's Bakoili, Shayisin that it's Malchus, Ter Shani Ibrahim, who Shanim Shabbat Naskeli, you say it's Yamatsu. So here comes the Chiddush. Malchus Sadatzma is just the unit of Makabal, unit of Dibur. Chiddush of Yisrei Naretz is when you're Mamshech Koil, when you're Mamshech Yisoid, into Malchus. What do we say? What do you mean? It's a Chiddush when you're Mamshech Yisoid in Malchus. Malchus is always getting a spell from Yisoid. What is Malchus giving over? What's the Dibur expressing? The Dibur is expressing something that the person has in his nefesh. What part of the person will the Dibur express? It will express the part of the person that's shaykh to the Zulas. The person's experience, that's what he's going to give over in Dibur. So, in other words, those parts of the person that are completely movable and not in relation to what's outside of him, that's not what's going to come out in Dibur. Dibur is expressing that part of the person that's experiencing it. The shaykh Zulas. What are we saying? Yisrael it's Bakaylu. That's the Chiddush. That's what always happens. Says the Rabbi Shmuel Korf. It's this that we say that this is an addition on Malchus. It's like Malchus Mekabelos Tamid Mizah Midis. Even though Malchus is always receiving from Midis, who Kam Shachar Mizah Malchus he b'derech klal be'oifin Shaydei Shamalchus Mekabelos b'seichas eiris dezo he mishtanis. Usually when Malchus receives the Hamshacha from Zah, the Hamshacha will change. The way a person will bring out the midas in Dibur will be different than the way he has the midas inside of himself. Even though when a person expresses something in Dibur, he's expressing what he feels about it. He's expressing the way he experiences the things that he has. But the fact that he's speaking about it is going to cause that it's going to be, first of all, Bakamus, he won't be able to express everything that he has inside of himself. But not just that, the fact that he's expressing it to someone else is going to make him change it. He's not going to be able to express, not just inside the Kamus of the Diburim, but Be'echut. It's going to be more shallow. It's going to be something that he can put into words. It's not going to express the feeling the way he has with the full takeoff, the emotion that he has. He won't be able to. If a person has a deep emotion inside of himself, he won't be able to express it in words. A person tries expressing something in words. You're not expressing something you have inside of yourself, but it's going to turn it into something that has a description. And that description will for sure be something that will be much more bechatzonius than the emotion that he has. So, in other words, the Dibur is taka receiving from the Midah, but it's going to change over the Midah and turn it into English of the Dibur. Into more external language. That's what Malchus has usually. Yisrael, the Eretz Malchus, Subakoil, Yisoid. The Yisrael that Malchus is shaykh to is that you're able to be Mamshech in Malchus, Koil itself, Yisoid itself. Malchus Mekabelos b'chinas HaYisoid, Kumeisha Hu Batzmusay. It has the ability to be Mamshech in itself, the way the Midah is in the person. Dibur has the ability to express in the Dibur the way the person actually has the emotion inside of himself. That's a higher level of Dibur, of Malchus, that it's able to have the hashpah the way it is, even in Malchus. Hine, zeh sham shachas agelu de b'chinas keilu yisen ba Malchus, udav kam nigel chetzenis ha-Malchus. Eretz. Given shechetzenis ha-Malchus, ha-Dibur de Malchus. Yon, hu shi sheish ha-Nivroim, lochein zeh shanim shach ba agelu de b'chinas keilu zimat zilul shalom ayel sheish ha-Nivroim, hu yisu. This that we're saying, that it's a chiddush, that a person is mamshech keil and malchus, that is only a chiddush in chetzenis ha-Malchus. In that level of dibur, that its inyan is to express it to the other person, and therefore it's going to turn into something more external and something more shallow, and it's trying to express it in words. That's the koyach of malchus, the part of malchus that's actually mashpia. That's chetzenis ha-Malchus. Because in this level we're being mischashev with the nivra, we're being mischashev with the zulas. So here's going to be changed. But in other words, Gimel Rishen is the Malchus. 3 a higher level, which is like Meichin of Malchus. Who she mekabelos me'ayisoid. Pnimius Malchus is, like we said before, the ability of the person to really have what he had previously. So then, fakert, that level is supposed to really feel the way Yisoid is. the way the person really has it. So then it's not a chiddush for him to experience Yesod. That's what he is. His inyanist experiences it. In other words, not just the fact that he receives the midah, but the fact that he feels the midah the way it is without changing it, without making it more shallow. That's what his inyan is. So that's not a chiddush for him to have koil. So and that's why we find the Gan Eden is called koil. Like Chazal say, there's three people that Hashem made them taste in the similar to them. Elohein, Abraham, Abraham, Yitzchak, Mikael, Yaakov, Koil. Yeah, famous thing, Bakel, Mikol, Koil. This is Abraham, and Yaakov, all are similar to Koil. In other words, we describe an experience of Elam Haba with the word Koil. Why? Because Koil is Yesod. And in Gan Eden, you have this experience of Koil, of Yesod. Koil is Yesod, Kanal. Gan Eden, and Gan Eden, because it receives from Pnimis Amalchus, like I said previously, so therefore, it is able to experience Yesod the way it is, which is higher than the experience that you have in Eretz, where it's a chiddush to have the inyan of Yesod.